My favorite segment, I think probably the best feedback that we've gotten from the segments up to this point, it is Predict to Commit. Just as a quick refresher, where Jordan and I are going through every episode and we are predicting one, sometimes two. We'll see what it's going to be today. Guys that we think are going to commit to Georgia at some point during the recruiting cycle. As a reminder, Jordan has Derek Cooper, Tyler Atkinson. If you're watching on YouTube, he has a graphic pulled up on this as well. He has Derek Cooper, Tyler Atkinson, Carter Lucky, and Mark Bowman. Did I get your side of things correct?
You are correct.
And then on my side, it is Graham Houston, Zach Fort, Jay Lamar, and Desmond Green. Jordan, I was gonna go first, but I'm actually gonna let you go first. I'm feeling generous today. Who you got?
No, you go first. That'll help me to get the graphics up. And I kind of want the feeling of being the second guy. I want to see if I have to adjust on the fly. So it's all you, buddy.
Okay, so I am going to take a little bit of a leap of faith on this one. This is going to be my every other pick. Graham Houston, Zach Fort, Jay Lamar, Desmond Green. None of them are like. Actually, you know what? I'm changing my mind on the fly. I brought it up earlier in the show. I brought up Jay Lamar and another player that is sort of mentioning Georgia as a top target or as their top school right now. At safety, I am taking my Predict to Commit Buford defensive back Tyreek Green. I wasn't going to take him originally, but now that I think about it, I think that there's a really high chance that he ends up there. I was actually when Tyreek Green actually started his high school career at Kell High School, where Georgia's also recruiting some other top players right now. And when he was at Kell, I was actually out at a spring practice at Kell that Travaris Robinson was also at. And there were a lot of good players out there at Kell, but Travaris Robinson was hawking Tyreek Green during this. He had a video camera out recording every little last thing that he did. I know that they've really got a strong relationship. He visited for a junior day. Like I mentioned, he already told me after that UA Atlanta camp that Georgia has separated themselves from the pack as one of his top schools. That's not to say that Georgia's guaranteed to get him, but I'm feeling pretty good about where Georgia stands right now, and so I'm adding Tyreek Green to my list.
I like it.
Tyreek Boogie Green, by the way. Boogie is his nickname.
Please, let's get more of that. Let's get more where that came from. I'll take the screen down real quick. I thought you were going to go with someone else, and I'm going to save that one, but I will go with another defensive back, and I'm going to go with Houston County's Jordan Smith. I'm going to go with him. I think he's a guy that has I think he's already got his official visit scheduled.
May 30th to June 1st.
So I think he's a guy that you pay attention to those visits. You pay attention to some of those in-state guys, especially. It feels like these last couple of years, the state of Georgia has really been productive and had a lot of quality recruits. We've talked a good bit. I feel like the two positions, Ben, and sort of position groups that we've talked a lot about in 2026 has been running back and the secondary defensive back. So I think that Georgia's going to go hard after some of these guys. I really like the possibility here with Jordan Smith, and I've got him as my next Predict to Commit.
Well, you already know I was going to do this, Jordan. You knew anytime that I'm teasing whether we're going to take one or two that I just can't help myself. I'm going to want to take two, and it sounded like we were both a little conflicted on who we might take with our first pick. So let's do it. Let's predict two commits today. I am going to let you go first this time. I'm not going to let you talk me out of it.
All right. This was the one I was kind of going back and forth on. And when you started this segment and we're saying, yeah, this was a guy that I was talking about a little earlier, I was like, oh, he's getting this guy. Like that. I should have interrupted. Said, no, I changed my mind. This is who I'm going with. I'm going to go with Jared Smith.
Ooh, I like that pick too.
Jared Smith, interior offensive lineman that you talked about earlier in the show. Again, looking at these offensive linemen, looking at the possibilities and the guys that Georgia's going hard after. I kind of like when in doubt, I think back to that junior day and who was getting some time with Kirby Smart, who was there for that basketball game. Jared Smith was one of those guys. I think he's a really impressive guy. And I think that, it's not going to be easy. Some of these you're like, you kind of get a sense like, all right, I feel really good about this pick. by no means is this one done, but I really like Jared Smith, and he's going to be my next predicted commit.
To that point, we almost need to put a date next to when we're making these, because like predicting a commit on February 20th compared to predicting a commit when we're doing a show on like June 25th is going to be completely different, because there's going to be so much more clarity later on in the year once they've gotten through spring visits and official visits and things like this. So right now, I mean, the fact that we're doing 2 predicted commits an episode, back-to-back episodes, like we're putting our neck out there a little bit. I do think Miami's going to give Georgia a run for Jared Smith, but I like that pick a lot.
I don't want to call us brave, but Ben, like, I mean, what we're doing here with this show, you're just not seeing it anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly right. Like I'll say it. We're brave. We're brave. And you know what? You want to know how brave I am, Jordan? I'm about to do something. I told myself, like, when you picked Derek Cooper and Tyler Atkinson, I was like, all right, and I think both those are great picks. I think there's a great chance that either or both of those guys end up in Georgia's class. Make no mistake about that. But I thought, man, Jordan is really shooting for the stars with these first couple picks. Like, those are guys that are going to be 5 stars, number 1 linebacker, one top 5, top, I think, 5 athlete in the country with Derek Cooper. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and take a more measured approach. I'm not going to take any crazy chances. I'll get to the 5 stars when we get there. And I just decided, screw it. I'm going to do it. And I know that if there is one quarterback notwithstanding, if there was one player in this class that Georgia could just go out and say, NIL aside, where they want to go to school aside, you can have one football player, who would that football player be? The answer for me is 5-star offensive lineman Jackson Cantwell. This is going to be a wildly, wildly, wildly competitive recruitment. Oregon's involved. Miami's involved. He's from Missouri, and Missouri's going to be involved. Michigan's going to be involved. You don't really have to go further than looking at those schools that I just listed, the top 6 that he's released. I think Ohio State was in there as well, to know that this guy is going to be compensated very, very well for his skill set and his recruitment. I mean, you are looking at the best of the best when it comes to NIL operations in college football right now, are the ones that are in his top 6. You throw on top of that, it is all of the best offensive lines in America. Typically speaking, I know Georgia fans are going to push back on that given what they just witnessed last year. Flash in the pan, Georgia offensive lines, Michigan, Ohio State, Miami, Oregon, like, these are the best offensive lines across college football. These are the teams that are in the top 5, top 6 for Jackson Cantwell. Kirby Smart went out to see him in Missouri. Anytime that Kirby's going to make that far of a trip to go see a guy during the window, something to think about. I know last year when the contact period started, the very first morning that coaches could be out somewhere, that's where Stacey Searles was. He went to go see a 2026 recruit, not a 2025 recruit at the time. I know that Jackson has told me in the past that Stacey Searles was the very first coach that went out to see him during that contact window, and that is not a coincidence. Georgia knew exactly what it was doing when it was doing that. He will have an official visit scheduled to Georgia, though I don't have the exact date on that yet. I am confident in saying that Georgia will earn an official visit. There are some interesting family ties there. His family, both of his parents were Olympic throwers, and Jackson Cantwell in his own right is, along with being arguably the best offensive lineman in the country, is also one of the best shot putters and discus throwers in the country. He'll be competing for Nike national events and those types of things. I know he set a 40-year Kansas relays record last year in either the shot put or the discus. I can't remember. So he is really like that when it comes to shot put and discus. His parents both competed in the Olympics, and they are close friends with a guy named Reese Hoffa, who is a University of Georgia shot putter, discus thrower, who has trained a lot of people in the Georgia area. I think he was even on the track and field coaching staff at one point, potentially, but he lives in the Athens area. And when the Cantwells come on visits to Georgia, they often stay multiple days because they'll stay at Reese Hoffa's house. And so there are serious Georgia connections there. Georgia wants this guy really, really badly. If I were to point to what are my red flags with Georgia landing Jackson Cantwell, it's 1, for lack of a better term, it's going to be a big money recruitment because he's at a position where it requires it and he's just that good. And then 2, because of the track and field side of things, I think that Oregon, which is a school that is really high on his list, has a little bit of an advantage. Like I know that I was just talking with Jackson last week and he sent me his full track and field schedule. And like the national event, like June 19th to June 22nd is in Eugene, Oregon, at like on Oregon's campus. It would not surprise me at all if his official visit to Oregon is shaped around that visit as well. I don't know that specifically, but all that to say, like he's going to get access to Oregon just through some of his track and field related things. So I think that does give a little bit of a built-in advantage to Oregon, but I'm taking my first 5-star leap of faith, Jackson Cantwell to Georgia.
Sometimes you got to risk it. And I think to your point, I mean, Georgia's going to be in the thick of it. There's a long way to go in this one. Jackson's a guy I thought about, just wouldn't pull the trigger. But we talked about brave earlier. Ben, you're braver than me, and I like your chances there.
Well, what it came down to, and that's why I almost took him with my first pick over Tyreek Green, is I'm from Missouri. I was born just outside of Springfield, Missouri, and I would have gone to Nixa High School, which is the high school that he goes to in Southwest Missouri. I would not have been able to live with myself if I was looking at a graphic that said Jackson Cantwell, Nixa, Missouri, and it was on Jordan's side, not Ben's side. And then he ends up signing with Georgia or committing to Georgia. I couldn't have lived with it being on your side of the graphic. So if I'm wrong, I'll take that hit, but I could not have been in a world where you were right and had the guy from Nixa High School that's the 5-star offensive lineman.
Well, the nice thing, if that would have happened, is I wouldn't have, bullied you. I wouldn't have held that over your head at all.
No, definitely not.